Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Just testing that you can all hear me fine this morning. A bright sunny day over here. Okay, good. Baruch Hashem, welcome back, Rabbi Kefa. Everything went smoothly last week. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so we can either wait for some other people to turn up, or we can kickstart it earlier. So I'm thinking that I have a few testimonies to share with you, a few stuff to share. I may actually kickstart it earlier so that I could get the testimonies done, and because there's other things that I will talk about as part of the testimonies, and so we'll keep it focused, and we'll keep it on scripture, and we'll keep it on real life rather than just wishy-washy things that people are waiting for and never happen. So with that in mind, I wanted to first tell you that what's today's date? 22nd. Okay, some of you already done the Pentecost, which was I believe on Monday, which is 17th. If you did the Jewish lunar calendar, if you keep the lunar calendar, then your Pentecost would have been done on Monday. If you're doing the solar calendar, and the solar calendar is up on the website, if you haven't got a copy, you can get one. Again, some students usually come back and ask me that they don't have a copy of the solar calendar. It doesn't really matter if you have a copy or not, because the dates don't change. You could write down the nine or so festival dates in the calendar, and they will never change for the entirety of your life, and even beyond, for your children's children. So you could tell your children, you could tell your family that the Passover is going to be April 3rd every year, and it never changes. It doesn't matter what happens in the world, it never changes. So April 3rd is fixed permanently in the calendar. And then the same way, May 24th is fixed in the calendar. So Pentecost is 2 days from now, according to the calendar of Enoch. And remember one thing, that Enoch was teaching the Torah according to the Bible, according to the Torah. Enoch was teaching the Torah long before the Torah was given to Israel. So again, I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that, of how that happened, but he was teaching the Torah, from the book of Enoch, and from the other evidences that we see. It says that he taught Torah to the kings of Africa and other kings for almost 250 years. So think about it. Enoch must have lived a long time. Ancient people lived a long time. They lived, 100 was just a throw in the bucket for them. 100 was nothing, but they did live for a long age, and anything between 170 to 250 was a common age back then. And Noah is mentioned as living long life. Yeah, and they had many children. So we do note that when we read the Torah, if we read it literally, the journey of Israel out of the Exodus, then we note that the people that came out of the Exodus, they had many wives, they had many children. I think I did a calculation. It is in the Torah, it's in the Abrahamic-Faith or the Hidden Truths Hebraic Scrolls Bible in the footnotes, and it works out to like 52 to 56 children per family. That's the only way they could increase in numbers quickly, and that's the only way that the king of Egypt would be afraid of them, because he wouldn't care if they were only like American style families, like with 2 children and 2 parents, or one set of parents and 1 set of kids. They wouldn't care. But if you suddenly had 56 children running around, and the king of Egypt would start worrying, well, what happens when they grow up? Are they going to take over my land? Each family having that kind of number becomes for any king that would be a worry. I mean, think about it. think about it today, right? We have a pandemic, okay? Now there's lots of theories about the pandemic, and I'm not really sitting here to verify theories for people, but you can see that on the internet some people just live around conspiracy theories. There's a theory that they're trying to reduce the population sizes. There's a theory that the elite want to control the world, but the elite have always controlled the world. If you think that the elite want to control the world, then you really don't know what the world is. You really live in a cave. Osama bin Laden maybe, and you don't know where the world is, because the elites have always controlled the world. They always had the upper hand because they have the finances to do it. It's nothing to do with pandemic, giving a pandemic or not giving a pandemic, because the rich have always had a full plate, and they've been born with a golden spoon in their mouth. So those people that have been born with a golden spoon in their mouth, do you seriously think they care what I and you think about the pandemic? Do you really seriously think, if that's what your day is spending on finding out that this is all a biological weapon, then you really have a poor life. You really have no life, because you really need to get a life. I would encourage you to go get a life, go out, feel the nature, go maybe fishing. America has a lot of good fishing places, things like that. When I look at the wealth of my cousins, in Saudi Arabia and Dubai and UAE, when I look at the kind of wealth they splash, I really think, right, that people don't know that the Arabs are not counted in any rich list. If you ever look at a Forbes rich list, the Arabs are not counted, by the way, because their rich list is beyond the Forbes rich list. So the point I'm trying to make is, do you seriously think that they care what you and I would do sitting in America? They don't have time for that. They don't care. They're not going to be here tracking you, what you're doing or what you're not doing. They don't give a damn whether you live for 100 years or 500 years. They don't care, because their wealth is so much that they've already worked their wealth for 7 generations ahead. Okay, so if you're one of those guys who's working 9-to-5 job or going 8-to-5, and you're trying to make ends meet, then you're the one who needs to catch up with them. They don't need to catch up with you. So here we have a system. It's called the Torah. It's called the perfect law. We have a system that gives you that edge to catch up. Not only to catch up, but also to live a prosperous life. That is the system that we have. And that system, and it's not because I'm saying it, I will say it over and over again, but our forefathers used that system. Abraham used it, Isaac used it, Jacob used it, and they lived very prosperous lives. If today we didn't have the dollar and the pound and the euro, then we'd probably be carrying a sheep. I'll probably be carrying a sheep on my shoulders and say, can I trade that in for a batch of chocolates at Walmart? But I don't carry sheep on my shoulders. Point is that your wealth today will be in sheep and cattle, and Rabbi Kefa will be taking his bull to town and saying, can I transfer that bull over there and get $5,000 worth of shopping? See, we don't do that. But our ancient forefathers, they did have bulls, they had calves, they had camels, they had sheep, they had donkeys, they had horses. That is, when the Bible speaks about Abraham having 300 servants, that illustrates Abraham's wealth. And if you looked at the king of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, they talked about his 800 servants and how he carries them in his 7 planes with all his goods. It kind of starts to show you what kind of wealth Abraham had, in comparison. So let's say that if the King Salman of Saudi Arabia has $1.5 trillion of wealth and he's affording 800 servants, right? But we know that Abraham afforded 300 servants. Abraham didn't have as big a palaces as King Salman maybe. But we do know that Abraham didn't think to live that way, because he didn't worry about buying, a plane and parking it. So Abraham didn't need that kind of space. So Abraham needed space for his cattle, he needed space for his horses and his donkeys and his camels, and he had plenty of space. And the Bible tells us, and him and Lot, his nephew, argued about pasture land, and then he just said, look, you choose yours and I'll choose mine and we'll go our way. There's no need to fight about it. So they had a lot of cattle. Abraham would have been comparable to today's King Solomon, if you really look at it. Think about that. Think about that for a second and let that sink in. That Abraham would have been incomparable to that man that you see today on riding on planes. Because Abraham could also ride on planes. He could also own airports. And he could also own, hundreds of servants, more than he had. But because they lived at a time when technology hadn't advanced that much, we didn't have no spaceships, we didn't have electric cars, we didn't have planes that were flying. So Abraham had stuff that rolled on the ground. The best car that he could find would be a carriage, and Abraham had those things. And the best weapons you could find wasn't an AK-47 or a M18. The best weapons was the sword and the arrow and the bow and the arrow, and he had those weapons. So point being that Abraham fought battles as well, just as today's modern armies, they go fight battles. So did Abraham. And the Bible tells you that he went and he fought battles with the kings and he defeated them. So my point being that like for like, if you are simply a person who's going from home to church and church to home, and you are not making ends meet, you're an honest person, you are a good man or a woman, and you're trying to do good for yourself and the world, but you can't make ends meet. If that is you, and I really mean that, if that is you, then you do not have the correct understanding and teachings of our forefathers, if that is you. Because when you're told, and I don't mean to put it in a negative way, it's not because every Christian out there is mean and evil, and I don't mean it like that either, or the pastors are all mean and evil. The pastors out there do not have the information in the correct format that we do. We are applying it in a format that we should. They are not. You see, when you keep talking about sin, and you only teach people sin, and you keep telling them that you're no good because you're a sinner, and you completely take the word sin the wrong way, then you are bringing people down and not up in the world. So you don't need the 13 elite families or the 5th. Now I think the families have gone up because there's so many billionaires in the world. And I was reading yesterday that in England, and the Lion Princess, you can check on this, England facts, there's 177 billionaires in England today, 2021. And one of those billionaires that I was reading about yesterday is a Ukrainian, he's a Ukrainian resident, and he's a British resident, and he like me has 2 nationalities. He has a British nationality and a United States nationality. So point being that he is a rich man that made his wealth in Ukraine and now is settled in England. And he has houses in America as well. The point being that these are the men listed in the rich list of men in England, and likewise there are many in America, and likewise in China and in India, everywhere else. So my point is that list, that that Illuminati list that you hear about from crazy wackos out there, that has moved on. that list is grown, by the way. There's no longer 13. There's probably many more families now. Again, like I said, if I didn't know it, I'll tell you. But I have sat in some billionaires' chairs. Yeah, I really have. I've sat in some billionaires' chairs, and I still do. I still sit with some of these billionaires sometimes. I go and I sit with them, so-called plane owners, who own planes. People who own planes, I sit in these with them and I meet them. And I listen to them. Not too long ago, last year, it was early last year, 2020, I believe, I went to a city in Pakistan, and I sat with a military man. Details I'll withhold. And I was sitting with him, and he was talking about the sale of a whole fleet of planes. a whole company, airline basically. He was selling an airline, and we were sitting there. I was sitting with the colonel, and he said, why don't you guys, he said to the colonel, why don't you ask your rich friend, he has a rich friend with many millions, and he said, why don't you ask your rich friend to buy this airline? And this airline needs a new owner, and it has a whatever, maybe 100 fleet of plane or whatever. And the colonel was like, well, this airline has gone into such and such problems in the past, and my rich friend probably doesn't want to get into that. My point is this: I was sitting there listening, and the guy shook my hands, and he said, can I offer you coffee or a tea? And I said, yeah, I'd like a tea, please. So he got us tea, and we were sitting with top military brass. These things I don't tell you, because you don't even know what the feeling is like of sitting in such people. I went and saw their range. I went to the Air Force, and I met with the high-ranking officials in the Air Force behind the lines. And this thing doesn't happen in real world. Pastors don't go around meeting with big, military brass, but I did, because I'm a Kohen and I sit in the gate. So I did. My point is that I'm Abraham's son, and if Abraham sat with kings, and if Prophet Elisha sat with kings, and he was a Kohen, so would I. I also sit with kings. So the point is very simple, that I don't sit here to tell you about conspiracy. I sit here to tell you the truth of what's behind there. And these people don't talk about, oh, well, how shall we suppress that man who works 9-to-5 job? They don't talk about that. They do not talk about it. They talk about, buying the next business. And I sit there and I listen to it, and I observe and I learn. I met a very high-ranking Republican. You think I hate the Republican Party, you got something else coming. I met a very high Republican rank official. I met him. I went to his house. He has apartments, big houses in New York. I met this man. He invited me to dinner. We sat down, we shook hands, and we talked about politics and this, that, and the other. So, but like I told you, I'm not here to, say Republicans are better than Democrats, vice versa. To me, it's all the same. Politics are the same. Whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. Each party has their manifesto, and they want to push their manifesto. So I listened to him. I listened to what he had to say. And give me a second, I just need to send a message. So I listened to him. He was very hospitable, and he told me that when I come around again that I should visit him, and I said sure I will. And we are good friends. We are still good friends today, and he's a Republican, by the way. So my point is that it's not about Republican and Democrats. It's about you. At the end of the day, like I said, rich people do not have time to think about what the little man is doing on the street. How many hours is he working a day? He doesn't care about that. He is thinking about the next amount of money he can make and what business he can invest into. So when I sat there, when I was sitting with this rich bunch of people, and the impression, not just the impression, this was really happening. They were talking about wealth building. They were talking about buying planes and buying airports and this, that, and the other. So it was all the whole talk. The whole talk wasn't petty. It wasn't like, oh, Betty said this and Jackie said that and I said this. No, the whole talk in that session that I spent, probably about an hour, was about business. They just simply talked about business dealings, about what businesses are on sale and what they're looking at, etc. That's the rich man's mentality, by the way. That's the businessman's mentality. So, I'll encourage you that if you want to be well, if you want to be rich, and I really mean rich, and I'm going to take you to a time of my life when I was in England, and I had these kids came up to me. These are like, kids were like 10, 12 years old, and they came to me to study Taekwondo. And I said to the kids, I said, you come over here to study Taekwondo, I make champions only. Are you the person to be a champion? I said to these kids, I said, I only make champions over here because I'm a champion myself. So I only train champions. Are you here to be a champion? Or are you here to waste your time and my time? And the kids were like, we will become champions as well. I said, okay, let's do it. I took those kids through 3 or 4 years of training in Taekwondo, and I made them champions. I produced 4 champions in the town I lived in, and they were vicious fighters. They became vicious fighters. And my other students were really good as well. So my point is that today you come over here into the class, or maybe you're listening over the air, and I tell you the same thing. I make millionaires right in your couch, because it starts with your decision. When you come to me and I ask you the question, do you want to be rich, or do you want to be that poor man lining up in the dole, what they call the Social Security in America? Do you want to line up in Social Security in America, or do you want to be the one employing 10, 15, 20, 100 people? Who do you want to be? You have to decide that point for yourself. And I think that you're having problems with I believe that you're having problems. And Rabbi Kefa, must be something in my end. Let me just give me a moment. Let's see what happened over here. Give me a second. I know what happened. I was getting a call coming in, and when I get a call coming in, I think what it may have done, it tried to disconnect. My internet's let me just double check that I've got my I know what happened. My hotspot unfortunately disappeared. I may disconnect and I'll come back. So give me a moment. I'm going to just reconnect to my hotspot. It seemed to just disappear out of the blue. Okay. Give me a minute. Let me fix it so we can do this right. Let me just get my hotspot sorted out. Okay, what are we? We are okay. Let's see. Where's my hotspot gone? Okay, now let me know if you can still hear me good, because I've just reconnected to my hotspot. That it seemed to have disappeared. Okay, good. So I was telling you the story about the children, the 12, 13 years old I met in England, and those that I made champions. And so I say the same thing to you today. Next, what happened after that? After that, I became a software engineer. From nowhere, like people didn't even expect me to do that, and I just went from nothing to something big. And I went from $5,000 salary at that time to within 2-3 years I went to $100,000 salary, and my family was like, what the heck happened? This man came from nowhere and he just went to the top. And they saw BMWs, they saw Mercedes in my house, and they saw me living in a nice big house, and they said, what happened to you? How did you do this? So I said, there's a big secret behind this, and I'll teach you. And they brought their children to me and said, can you please teach our children as well? I said, sure, I'll teach your children as well. So my auntie came to me, the one who used to sometimes criticize me. But she's a good woman. She wasn't that bad. She brought her son to me and said, this is your brother, my youngest son. And she said, you take him, and he's enrolled to become an engineer in university. You tell him what to do, so that he wanted to become an electronics engineer. And she said, you teach him so that he can be successful like you. I said, sure. I took my cousin. He was my cousin. I took him. I said to him, you drop, how many years have you done in university? He said, 1 year. I said, you drop out of that 1 year. Next year, I said, you're going to BIT, Business Information Technology. You're switching. And he said, okay. And so he switched. So I told him that what you're going to do, and what you're going to become a business information technology engineer instead. He said okay, and he did. And I told him, one second, I've got messages coming left, right and center. So I told him that you do exactly what I tell you and I'll have you in a nice paying job. And he said okay, and he followed me. And 2 years later, this young man was working in a nice paid job. He did exactly what I told him. He followed me to the letter. And then after that, I went to England 2 years ago. When I went to England and I saw him, many years later, and I shook hands with him and I said, how are you doing? He's a married man, he's got some children over there. And he said, I'm doing great. And I said, how's the job going? So you're still in the same job? He said, yeah, I'm in the same job. So he's been working the same job. I said, you got a nice salary? He said, yeah, I got a nice salary. I said, great, be happy. And he was a very happy man. I met my youngest brother. My youngest brother lives in England. And he was the one also that I took up with a challenge. And I said, I'm going to change your life. You're not going to do the job that you do, and you're not going to be the same person. And he used to work for a company in England called Rexel. Then he was working for a bank called Santander. You heard of Abbey Bank, Abbey National. He used to work for that bank as a bank teller. And his salary was a pittance, something like, at that time his salary was like about $10,000 at that time. And I said to my brother, I said, you won't be on $10,000. That's for sure, not with me. So I said, you will be on a different salary, different scale, and you will be earning big dollars, and you will have your own cars and your own homes. And he says, okay, so what do I need to do? I started teaching my brother. My brother today, for your information, today my brother earns in England £55,000 salary and bonuses for one of the biggest telecompanies, telecom companies, Vodafone. He is a network engineer for them, and he is that because of me, and he knows that, and he tells me that, and he has his own home. He has a Mercedes parked in his driveway, and he has more than one house. So my point, I bring you back to the coin in the gate. The coin in the gate is telling you today, those of you listening, that you too, my brother was happy to have 2 houses and 3 cars. He was happy with that, and I'm happy for him. But it doesn't stop there. If you want to have 10 cars and 10 houses, it can be done. But do you want it? Or do you want to just talk about it? I have people who just yabbity all day long and they get nowhere. But then I have people who are serious. They're like, you know what? I desire to get a business. I want to make $2 million a year, and I want to get, a nice house, nice cars. So okay, yeah, sure. So we have the technology. This movie, they say we have the technology. And so I would recommend for those of you that have Netflix, there is a movie, it's called Gunjan Saxena. Right? I type it down. Gunjan Saxena. Gunjan Saxena. Gunjan Saxena is a movie on Netflix. It is in English, subtitle. It's not subtitled. It's actually in English. They dubbed it from the Indian language, and you can see it. It's a story of a girl that at all odds became a fighter pilot in India. This is a recent story. It's not that old, and it tells you the story of belief and the story of your dreams. It really is a great story, and you must watch it, because if you see it, you will learn what it means to be disciplined. And I keep talking about the word discipline, because that's what this girl had. Real disciplined. Motivation will fail you. Discipline will get you there. And the instrumental person behind her life, the instrumental person in her life was her father, who was a colonel in the army. He's still alive. He's still alive. And it's a true story. So I encourage you to watch it. Really good story. Very good line. Very inspirational. Very, very inspirational. It actually talks about your dreams and what you set out to do. And she, as a kid, wanted to see, she got to see the plane's cockpit, like a passenger plane, and she saw the cockpit, and then from their point she said, you know what, I want to be a pilot. And that was her life. So my point is that don't think to yourself, oh, I'm 80 years old and it's too late for me and I can't do it now. You must be disciplined. And it doesn't matter if you're 80 years old, if you're disciplined, you can do it. But are you disciplined? This is exactly the same question that I ask my students. 15, 20 years ago, I asked my students in Taekwondo, do you want to be champions? Or do you want to be just layabouts and just come here for once, twice a week and pay me money and then just go away and get nowhere? They're like, no. We want to be champions. So that you will be champions. And they were champions. And I meet those kids when I go to England. Whenever I go there, I see them in the street or somewhere in their cars, and they come up to me and they shake hands with me and they say, how are you doing? How are you doing, sir? How are you? We love you, we miss you. You taught us some great stuff. And I didn't just teach Taekwondo. I taught them some principles in life as well, even then. So I am teaching you, and I'm telling you that this word sin that has been thrown around in religious circles, they make it sound like that you're a terrible person, that you're going to go to hell because you committing sins. But the word sin does not mean that. In the Bible, by Jesus' own words, Jesus said the following words, and he said that, let me pick up the verse, and I will bring the verse to you. He said in Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 9, verse 12, but when Yeshua heard that he said unto them, and Jesus heard that he said unto them, they that be whole need not a physician, need not a doctor, but they that are sick. Because before the preceding verse, he had some Pharisees that came to him, and they were questioning his disciples. And they said, why do your disciples eat with the publicans and the sinners? And then he spoke and said that those that are sick, they are the ones that need a doctor. And those that are not sick, they don't need a doctor. So the word sinner or the word sin, you must always look at it in one context and one context only. Sin is missing the mark. According to Torah principles, sin does not mean that you're an evil person. And sin does not mean that you committed some heinous act. So you need to tell yourself that and remind yourself that sin simply means that you're limited. You're limited by your thinking, you're limited by your actions, and you're limited by your beliefs. So when you have so-called good Christians come up to you and tell you that you're a sinner and going to hell, in fact the ones who are going to hell are the opposite people, because they're living it and they don't even know it. It's crazy, but it's true. Your heaven and hell is right here in this earth. So they already make you a sinner by their definition of sin, and they make sure that you live in hell for the rest of your life, because you will never get anywhere. And if you think I'm saying it, yeah, because I was brought up in the East and in the West, partially, half and half maybe, or maybe 70 and 30%, or maybe even 20 and 80%. I was brought up in the East and the West being meaning England. So for me, I wasn't brought up as a Christian, but most of you were, and you know how your parents felt, and you know what your parents talked about, and you know how they suffered, and how they suffered as a result of the church's wrong teachings. They suffered, and some of them continue to suffer to this day. Some people are suffering to this day because they are dead. Being alive, they're still dead, because their lives are not reflecting their true worth has not reflected in their lives. They could have been a very different people. If they had a teacher like me, they would have been at a different stage of life. They wouldn't be talking about sin. They'll be talking about prosperity and abundance, and how much progress they made for themselves, for their children and their children's children. So we must move away from the bad teachings, the wrong teachings and the wrong precepts, to the right teachings. Now, I will tell you this. I've been a driver for maybe about 30 years now. I drive a car, and I can ride a motorcycle as well, I guess. But let's just say on the car front, I've been a driver for at least, let's just say, the span of 20 to 30 years, for argument's sake. From the moment I was maybe 16 years old, I've been a driver. And I had a few accidents when I was 18, 19, 20, maybe I had a couple of accidents back then. But then I learned a principle. I learned a principle of not to have an accident. And since that time, I've never had an accident. Not even once. And I have driven 24 hours, 26 hours, 30 hours. I've driven round the clock, non-stop. Going from Florida to New York, 24 hours round the clock, non-stop. Only stopping for gas. And only stopping to go, buy coffee or something, or hot chocolate in my case. So, I only stopped to get my hot chocolate at Starbucks. And I've driven 24 hours, 26 hours, 28 hours, 30 hours even. Stopping for gas and hot chocolate. And I have never had an accident. Because I've applied that principle throughout my life. And I still do. And I taught that principle to one of my students. And she was telling me that she has avoided some serious accidents. Todah for that, James. James says he's been there as well. So, my student has avoided some serious accidents in order to apply that principle. It's all about principle, because your body takes over. When you know the principle, your body takes over. And, I have not a cousin, but my cousin's husband. I remember the story about him in England. He was, driving, he's a taxi driver, he owned some taxis. He was driving a taxi and he was going at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. He's coming back from London to his hometown, which is about an hour away. And as he was coming home, he fell asleep on the way and he ended up driving his car into the field. So, it's kind of funny. Technically funny because, he's not normally like that to drive a car in the field, or normally to fall asleep, but he did fall asleep, and he went into the ditch. And we often joked about it. When I was in England, we were often joking about it, that, he was driving the car, he went into a ditch, fall asleep, and next minute he's dreaming about something and he's in the field. And it is only funny from that angle, but he was, luckily he's alive and well, nothing happened to him. And, he was safe. So my point is that even when you learn the principle that I taught, you will not be driving into a ditch. You even fall asleep for a moment, you will be on autopilot. You'll be like driving Tesla. You won't fall asleep. Your Tesla will be automatically going and nothing. Suddenly you'll wake up, oh, you're still on the road. So my point is that the principle is true. But these are principles of the Bible that we, unfortunately, many of us don't get the right teachers to teach us these things. Some of us do. So, my student was telling me that how she managed to avoid some serious accidents applying the principle. The principle is very simple. It's not a hard principle. The principle is simply this, that you're holding onto your steering wheel of your car and you just visualize that you brake hard. Boom. A car is coming close to you, brake. That's it. That's the principle. You didn't hit the car. And I have used that principle and I have never had an accident. Because all you do is you do maybe 3 seconds, 4 seconds of visualization. That you're driving a car, you're really literally driving a car. This is you have to do on your car. You have to be in your car, truck, whatever, while you're driving it. And while you're driving, you just imagine that you didn't hit the next car. That the next car braked. You see the next car braked with the red lights. The red backlights, they lit up and you went boom, brake. And you stopped short of hitting that car. That's the principle. And with this one principle, I guarantee you'll never have an accident if you apply the principle. And so anyhow, so that was just one principle. But there's many principles like that. Principle of wealth. There's a principle of wealth as well. And there's many principles of wealth that we apply, and we're not talking about paying, $10,000 and investing in Bitcoin. That's not the principle. Because those of you who didn't take out the Bitcoin investment when it went to close to 60,000, you should have taken it out, because Bitcoin dropped to almost 33,000, kind of almost halved. So you got to know when to be in something and when not to be in something. And I was reading about a man in Washington, a man, I think he was a Navy guy, a black guy who was in the Navy, and he was talking about how he made money in some other things other than Bitcoin. He had some other cryptocurrency coins, and he made $1 million plus, and he was talking about how he's got his own house in Washington and car and stuff like that. So he was talking about him becoming a millionaire off the Bitcoin, not so much the Bitcoin itself, but different cryptocurrencies. So anyhow, the point is not how you become a millionaire. The point is, do you want to become a millionaire? That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not interested in whether you tell me, I like to be a millionaire through Bitcoin. You can't do that. When you want to become a something, like if you said, I like to have a car parked in my drive, you don't worry about how the money is going to be given to you, whether it's going to come through a business venture, whether a relative is going to donate the car to you or something. Don't worry about that. All you look at is the car. All you experience is the car, and the car is there. So my point is that the same way, this is the principle. And I use Jesus' words to demonstrate the principle. What did Jesus say? Jesus said, Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua of Nazareth said that they that are whole need not a doctor, need not a physician, but they that are sick. What does he mean by sick? Well, he's not talking about those that have the coronavirus. He's talking about those that have minds that are not functioning correctly, meaning that they're not operating at full benefit. In Matthew 19:26 it says, with the man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. When you live in your humanity and you're trying to do things, it's impossible for you to get there. See, you might say, I want to be a millionaire, and you try to do it your human way. Like, what I'll do is I'll do this, I'll do that, and a little bit of this, little bit of that, and you get nowhere. That's what Jesus of Nazareth was talking about. In the book of Numbers, which is our Parsha 35, Parsha's Naso, it says, and Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, take also the sum of the sons of Gershon throughout the Bethim, or throughout the houses of their avot, their fathers, by their mishpachot, by their families, from 30 years old and upward until 50 years old shall you number them, all that enter into perform the service. Now the number that was given there was 50. Okay? Now this is an important principle, but before I give you that, let me just have some water. The principle is this. I will explain that in a second, but let me give you another testimony. I had another testimony from a student, and there was a little outstanding debt amount that she had experienced, and then she used the principle I gave her, and then that debt was forgiven her. And I just had an email from her yesterday telling me that. So the principles work. The question is, are you going to apply them? So do you want to be that person? So coming back to the Master Yeshua, or Jesus' words, Jesus of Nazareth's words, like I told you last week, he was a Messiah, but the problem is that we do not, we as in when I say we, I'm talking about the Jews, Jews, or I'll put myself to one side actually, not me, them, those Ashkenazim, those, Sephardim, the Jews, they want a Messiah that's going to be a king, that's going to be one that's going to remove all the, let's put it politely, the foreign people in the land, and then it's going to overtake Israel and build a temple and blah blah blah, and on it goes, and then they're going to be living happily ever after. See, that's the kind of Messiah, a warring Messiah, is what the Jewish masses wanted. When the Romans were occupying Israel 2,000 years ago, that's what they wanted. And they're probably still looking for the same one. And guess what? Benjamin Netanyahu's not that Messiah. He's corrupt. He's got, cases against him. He's, bribery charges, corruption charges, you name it, they're against him. So, a lot of the people question today's war in Israel, whether that is in order to promote himself with the people and take away attention from his corruption to something else. The war between Israel and Palestine, Gaza, and so on and so forth. Again, my point is this, that they are still seeking a warring Messiah, and they're not going to get a warring Messiah. So, the Messiah that you have is a Messiah that teaches you how to live, how to apply the application. And Moses was also that Messiah who taught people how to live, application of the Torah, principles. But people didn't want Moses for that. They wanted something else. They wanted the cucumbers and the fish and the lettuce and everything else, but they wanted their way. They didn't want it the way that God wanted to give it to them. And that's mostly the problem. So, coming back to that, and coming back to the festivals, like we have, Pentecost, Shavuot, which is the time of the giving of Torah in 2 days' time, according to the solar calendar. A lot of us think that is to do with the festivals and to do with the remembrance and things like that. And sure, there is a part of remembrance. But, we, do the Omer count, counting the sevens. The 7 Sabbaths from Passover to Pentecost, 7 times 7. And the problem is this, that until we stay in our religious mind, religious ritual, we'll never get there. We'll always be wrong. And that reminded me of a story of one of the rabbis, 2 of the rabbis actually. There was a story of 2 of the rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Joshua. And Rabbi Eliezer said that the world was created in Tishri. And Rabbi Joshua said, no, it was created in Nisan. And then they said, well, he who says it's Tishri holds that Abel lived from Sukkot until Hanukkah. And he who says it's Nisan holds that Abel lived from Passover until Shavuot, Pentecost. So they said in either case, Abel was only in the world for 50 days. According to the Midrash, according to the Talmud, Genesis Rabbah 22:4, according to that, he only was in the world for 50 days. And then the Midrash talks about Abel representing something. Abel representing the seed, the grain. And it's born on the Passover and it dies at the harvest. And they talk about Abel's name, meaning breath or emptiness. And then they count the days of the Omer as the days of Abel's life. And then they basically go into this wishy-washy nonsense about how fragile our lives are and this, that and the other baloney, and it goes on and on and on like that. My point is this, that this is all baloney and mayonnaise, if you like mayonnaise, because this is not what it's about. We don't sit there talking about Abel's life and how, it was 50 days or more than 50 days. The time from Passover to now is 7 weeks. The 7 weeks, I look at it like this. It is the time to plant your desire, your seed, at Passover, and to bring your desire into fruition at Pentecost harvest. Meaning that if you planted your desire in, let's say, April 3rd, you should be able to bring your desire to fruition when the 49 days are up. Okay? Give and take. So if you were celebrating your Passover, let's say in March, and then you again celebrated your Pentecost in May sometime, then of course, that 7 Sabbaths. That 7 Sabbaths is when your desire comes to fruition. In other words, you plant your seed, like you make a decision, I want something, whatever that something is, whether it's a job, whether it's a house, whether it's a car. You sit on it, you imagine it, you write it out, you script it, or you imagine it, and then at Pentecost you receive it. And then again you at Pentecost, like tomorrow, 2 days from now, we plant another seed, and that seed will be our next manifestation and next desire. And then we'll wait till Tabernacles. And Tabernacles is a great festival, which means that our desire that we plant should come to pass at Pentecost. At Tabernacles. Okay, so I'm back again. Looks like I lost connection. So we should receive our desire at the great festival. Okay, that's the whole point of these cycles. These are cycles, and these are meant for our desires and our manifestations. Nothing to do with ritualization and this, that, and the other. They are another side of it, and we don't worry about that side so much, because these cycles have been going on for nearly 6,000 years. And if we still haven't learned, then if we're still arguing about Abel being 50 days or not 50 days, then we seriously have a problem. Houston, we have a problem, and what should we do about it? We think we need a complete remake. So my point is that rather than living in the death zone of a zombie, which means you're neither here neither there, and you're still waiting for heaven to come to you, you already have heaven, but you just haven't exercised it. So maybe it's time you exercise it. Exercise your heaven. And therefore, the count from Passover to Pentecost, and then from Pentecost to Shavuot, and then from Shavuot to the next festival, I calculated that from Passover to Tabernacles is 24 weeks roughly. And then from Tabernacles to the next festival, back to Passover, or Tekufa, is another 24 weeks. That's 6 months, by the way. So, coming back to the correct understanding, with the man this is impossible, or with God all things are possible. You should be planting your desire. You should be deciding on what you want in life. And you should plant that desire, and you will receive that desire if correctly planted, if correctly worked upon. Like you give it the water that it needs, you give it the love that it needs, you should be cutting the harvest. And if you're not cutting the harvest, unless you want to be a billionaire in 6 months, of course, everything is possible. I'm saying that don't set a desire so high for a 6-month period that it's difficult to achieve it in 6 months. Like I'm talking about literally talking about being a billionaire. Unless you win the $500 million lottery twice, but then they're going to tax you, you still might end up with $500 million, even if you win it twice, because after the taxes. And then you might invest it in the stock market, and maybe your stock doubles, you made your $1 billion. It's possible. I'm saying it's possible. It's not impossible. It is possible. But set a desire that is possible. In the realms of possibility. If you said to yourself that I want to have $50 million in 6 months, it's possible. It's in the realm of possibility. I heard a man not too long ago, a couple of years back, who said that he wanted to make $100 million in 1 year. This is a true story, by the way. And this man, he did make the $100 million in 1 year. He ended up setting up a company, a streaming company, and his streaming company went from whatever price it was to the price where he was able to take out $100 million after a sale. This is a true story. It is not made up. So I'm saying that it's possible. It's possible. So set yourself a desire that is meetable, reachable, and possible. Other people already done it. They proved it can be done. So can you. You can do it. Because you have much more powerful tools. You have very powerful tools. And the tool that person used, he spoke about his tools that he used. He used scripting. He used to script it every day. That is going to make the $100 million. And so can you. This is why I say, so can you. But are you willing to do it? So if you are willing to do it, then yes, possible. Nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. You just got to have the right mindset. So coming back to our festivals are really a time for that. Now in 2 Corinthians 9:6, according to the Rabbi Paul of Tarsus, he says that remember this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Now here he's talking about giving and taking. A lot of people, they have a hard lock on their wallets or their purses. They have this hard lock, and this hard lock just doesn't it's rusted. It just doesn't open. So the people don't want to give. So if you don't give, you don't receive. We're talking about tithing, we're talking about zadaqah, we're talking about other things generally in life. So there was a man, he's a nice guy, his name was Michael. I used to work with him in London in my previous role as a senior engineer. I was working with him, and the guys there, they used to joke about Michael, and they used to say, Michael's got a lock on his wallet, he just won't release it. So he says when he tries to open his wallet, it cranks like it's cranking up. So they used to joke about that. And I used to kind of sit opposite to each other. I used to laugh about the jokes they used to make about Michael, and Michael used to laugh as well, because he was there, and he used to talk about his things as well. It's kind of funny. So unless you got a lock like Michael, you're having cranking your wallet, it's hard to open. We have to maybe prize it with a laser gun, with a rod. So my point is that, just as Paul said, you need to sow sparingly, and you will reap sparingly. Means that you got to don't be a what you call it, begrudging giver. Don't begrudge. When you give to God, God will give you back in many returns. Don't begrudge, because many people, they begrudge, and they whinge and they whine and they complain and they're all this, and then they don't get anywhere in life. And then they wonder why they didn't get anywhere in life. Why did Jane over there has a Mercedes parked in her driveway, and why am I still driving my Khupti? They worry about that because they're not a giver. They're begrudging. So what the principle we're taught is to sow sparingly. So if you're investing in businesses, you invest in businesses with your good mindset. Good mindset. Now the Chinese say this. They say that a picture speaks 1,000 words. Okay, this is a Chinese method now. Chinese say picture speaks 1,000 words. Now I say to some of my students, I say, get yourself a check and write an amount on it. Like maybe you put down $100,000, maybe you put down $1 million, maybe you put down 5 million. It's up to you. You take a check, a blank check. Because many of you have checkbooks. You on that check you write down your amount, 1 million or 5 million or whatever amount you desire, and you put down your name in the blank column which says name, and you put your signature on it, and you put a date on it, like say today's date. And what you do is you take that check every day and you look at it, and you say, I received this. This is mine. I receive it. That's all you got to do. Every day you pick it up. It's in front of your laptop, or it's in your pocket, or it's on your table. You just pick it up and say, you know what? I received this amount. Thank you. Thank you, I received this amount. And you say, thank you, Lord. Thank you, God. I received this amount. This is mine. You take ownership. You claim it. When you claim that ownership, and you do this for just 5 minutes a day, no more than 5 minutes, maybe even less, maybe 3 minutes a day, you just do this technique, then that money is now getting ready to come into your life, and that money will come into your life. Now, how long it takes, it all depends on you, how you make the application, and that's how long it will take. Because remember that when a pregnancy takes place, when a woman conceives, then of course we know, give and take 9 months of bringing forth the baby, pregnancy. So when you're taking that check and you're becoming pregnant, you're conceiving that check, you're conceiving the amount, Now you become impregnated. Doesn't matter you're man or woman. We all have secret wombs. Secret wombs will allow us to manifest. So we're becoming impregnated, spiritually speaking. And then we're going to bring forth that baby. That money, that desire is going to come forth. Now it all depends on you, because different things, different seeds, they have different ingestation periods. Now, I'm not an expert on horses, but I think the horse, when a horse gives birth, I think the time period is different. To the moment of conception to the moment of birth, I don't know exactly, but I believe it's different to a human. So each seed is different, to ingestation to conception. Now one person may conceive a seed, like I gave you a cycle, 7 times 7. One of my students asked me, how long should I, imagine this. I said 7 times 7, 49 days. Then you let go. He said, okay, I'll do it for 49 days and let go. And then you detach, you stop doing it. You give yourself, how long you do it and stop? 49 days. How many days you stop and redo it? I told one of my students as a trial. I was having a test with him. I said, let's do this. 7 times 7 is your cycle. You do this desire for 7 times 7, you detach, you stop after that. It doesn't matter if you're doing writing, imagination, whatever, you stop. And then I said, how long do I take a break? I said, what does scripture say? How long should you take a break? And the scripture tells you cycles. And we follow that cycle, 7 times 4, 28-day cycle. So you stop for 4 weeks, you stop. After 4 weeks you look, is that desire here? And the answer is yes or no. Yes is here, no problem. If the desire is here, you carry on to the next desire. If the desire is not here, another cycle of 7 times 7. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is moon cycles or solar cycles. So remember Jubilee Day. We're given Jubilee. And it says that Jubilee is also 7 times 7 plus 1, 50 years. Okay? Or 50 days in scriptural terms. So my point is that behind everything we do, everything that we do, we have cycles. And you need to apply cycles to your life, because there's power in that. So some of you, you come to me and you say to me, Rabbi, I did this for, 1 month and I got it. And some of you say, I did it for 3 months and I'm still waiting. So each person, it's not that something wrong with you and you didn't get it, it's just that each person is different. Each method is different. Some methods are much more powerful and some are not. Some are weaker, some are stronger. And it's up to you how you do it. And I usually, give guidance, behind the scenes. I give guidance to my students of what best to do. And the idea behind the sounds that I give you, I gave you certain sounds to listen to. The idea is that they enhance your power to bring in that desire. So even if you detached, even if you stop doing everything else, you can still listen to the sounds. And if you're ill, if you're looking for a healing, then of course the method doesn't change. You continue with it. Now one thing that you can do, and this is a method that is applied and that works, is this. You say to yourself, if you have problems, and I said this last week as well, and I say it again this week, if you have problems, and everybody in life has problems, by the way. Like I told you, I know many rich people, and those rich people also have problems, and they deal with them. They pay money, they pay a good doctor, they pay a good lawyer or whatever, and they get rid of their problem through working on it. So don't think that the problem only comes to the poor. No, problem comes to everybody, irrespective of how much money they have. But the rich only have the money to deal with it, whereas the poor don't. Poverty is a curse, and you need to lift that curse out of your life. And some people want to remain poor, so I say carry on. I'm not going to go and change their life, because if they want to live poor, let them live poor. Because poverty is a curse, and if you're living in that curse, then you're the one responsible for it, not me and not God. That's for sure. So in order to come out of that curse, you have to tell yourself that you're no longer poor. You're rich. I am rich. I am great. I am wealthy. Is that too hard and too difficult? No, it's not too difficult, because you got to make that mindset. So the same way as I said, all you got to do is apply it. And this is what you say. You say that my problems have passed. All my problems have passed. Big money is coming my way. My problems have passed. Big money is coming my way. It's wonderful. It's definitely true. It's wonderful. It's definitely true. These 4 words are so powerful that they will change your life's course. If you only applied these 4 words. If you didn't apply none of my teachings, and you just came here and you spent your 1 hour, 2 hours and just went away, and you only applied 4 techniques I give you, you will still change your life. And if you did, if you applied what I taught you, you will definitely change your life. 100% and beyond, because you will pass that technique to your children and to your children's children. This is how much you will change your life. So it's up to you. Do you take the word of Moses, and do you take the word of Jesus? Because both taught the same thing, but from different angles. Both did the same thing, but from different angles. It's not like I can say that one is better than the other. They both have power. Abraham did things, and he had teachers to guide him. Moses did things. Moses had God to guide him. You will do things. You have me to guide you. So it's up to you now what you want to do in your life. Do you want to live the poverty life? The curse that is not meant to be. God did not create you over here to live a poverty conscious life and a cursed life. God brought you here for an abundance life. And when you live the abundance life, it will push out to everybody around you for the highest good, for everybody, highest good of humanity, highest good of you, highest good of your family. All of you will benefit out of that. You will benefit, your spouse will benefit, your children will benefit, your maybe cousins, aunties, uncles may benefit out of it. So think about it. Decision. Always ready to make a decision and live it. Never use the words I can't. The word can't should not be in your dictionary. The word should always be I will and I can. So with that, I think that I've given you enough trajectory for success and principles. It's up to you what you want to do with them. Do you want to just be counted in the numbers of people that don't succeed, or do you want to be in the number of people that do succeed? And so therefore, I leave you with that thought, and I'm here to assist you. If you write to me, to my email address, to our website Abrahamic-Faith.info or forever-Israel.com, we have the websites. You can write to the email addresses, and if you have a problem, if you're not sure of something, sure, I can help you with that. But if you're just here to waste time, I'd encourage you not to do that, because for your own good, for your family's good, for your greater good, you need to do it for yourself. You're not a sinner. Well, technically you are, because sinner simply means that you're not achieving your desire. So if you're not achieving your desire, you're a sinner, yes. But if you're achieving your desire, you met the law. You hit the bull's mark. You hit the bullseye, and you got it. So this is the place you want to be, at the bullseye. Sinner simply means that you did not achieve the mark. It doesn't make you an evil person. It doesn't make you somebody bad. It just means you did not achieve the mark. Now you got to say to yourself, you know what, I want to achieve the mark, and I will do everything in my human given power to achieve the mark. I gave you some principles. If you only applied those principles correctly, you will hit the mark. So you want to try it with a check, you try it with a check. Remember this story, Rabbi Kefa reminded me that actor. He's a comedian, right? The one who was carrying a $10 million check in his pocket, and he said, one day I'm going to receive this check. And this man was out of a job, out of employment. He's a comedian star, Hollywood star. And then in the end, one day, after he became famous, and he still had that check in his pocket, in his wallet, and the director of a movies gave him a $10 million check. Here's your fees for that next movie we're going to make. So his belief was that he's going to get $10 million check, and he got it. So think about that. So I gave you a principle today to apply it, but apply it diligently, and apply it with the believingly, feelingly with faith. Faith means with feeling. Feeling is you already have it. Living in the end. It's not like, oh, when will it come? Oh, when will it come? It's not like that. So lack will bring in more lack. And if you have abundance, then it will bring in more abundance. This is why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Because I said in the British tabloid, in the Telegraph, yesterday's news was that the billionaire list has changed a little bit, expanded, and they said that the billionaires in the pandemic year, some of them increased their fortune by $7 billion, $7 to $7.5 billion, while many people, as you and we both know, I and you know, that many people lost their jobs, and they're cringing and they're crying and they're waiting at the Social Security office, went to go and sign, and the Social Security office saying, no, please don't come here. We'll, just call us and we'll send you your check. Just call us. Don't come to our office. Don't bring the virus here. And yet you had billionaires increase their wealth up to $7.5 billion. Think about it. What mindset do these people live in? And where is your mind? Change your mind, change your life. Okay, over to you, Rabbi Kefa.
Rabbi. Rabbi. Good to be back with the family here live and not in recording. Shem, we'll be doing it for a minute. Book of Shem. Yeah, Hakoin, you touched on some key areas that are really reality 101, and really what's going on the ground, and not living in some kind of airy-fairy fantasy land. And again, I firmly believe there's no such thing as a fantasy, because what people see as fantasy is what is their reality, really. I do believe that. So, people are just not in touch with themselves, and that seems to be a major problem. It's a major issue with a lot of folks. Due to the conditioning, because they, like I said, they were never taught. It goes back to who do you listen to. One of the basic principles of the perfect law, of the law of attraction, is who are you listening to? Who is your teacher? Do you have a teacher? A lot of folks are just listening to the wrong people. A lot of folks are just listening to themselves. And that's getting them in a lot of trouble as well, because, they're being mind controlled. They just go with wherever their mind telling them the wonderful device that the Creator of all things has given us to use for our benefit, and not to just control us, and that's our minds. And it's unfortunate occurring, and all I can do is sit back and be an observer and help those, and throw my rope and throw my sling out there to those who are willing to want help. Because you and I both know there's a lot of folks, you'll throw your sling, you'll throw your rope out there, but the people, they could be drowning in whatever they're drowning with, but you throw them the rope with the life raft on there, but they won't grab it. They're looking for either a bigger rope, or it's not how their mind told them it was going to happen. You see, you have to get over that one. Tadaw Rabbi for that, Hakoin. I think that's very important to understand, is that, if you want $1 billion, who cares how you get the $1 billion? I mean, who's going to reject $1 billion? You know what I mean? Or are you going to say, wait a minute, I dreamed, this is not how I imagined it was going to happen, so I'm going to reject this Amazon box with $1 billion in it from Jeff Bezos. I mean, come on. Does it really matter how? It really doesn't. It just matters that you have that feeling that you believe that it's going to come to you. You could give two hoots about how it comes to you. Who cares? Who cares how it comes to you? But on that note, I think it's very important. This is why I titled this lecture, Your Feel. Because I think it's very important that we be very careful about, what we filling ourselves up with. And this kind of coincides and piggybacks on what Hakoin is talking about. But what be very, very careful about what we fill ourselves up with. And we must be on guard about and be knowledgeable about what is filling us. You know what I mean? This is very, very important. And it's real because I see this. I was in a hospital this week, and I just noted, any of you ever been to a hospital? Put up a capital H if you've just ever been to a hospital. I titled this lecture, Your Feel. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. There's a particular kind of attitude, a particular type of energy that's in, once you hit those hospital doors, you know what I'm talking about. And it's totally opposite. The energy that you feel there is totally opposite of what Hakol is. To die for your responses, by the way. You know what I'm talking about. Because you get in there and people have already made a decision on their belief or how they feel, right? Oh, you go in the hospital and most people saying, whoa, I feel sick, right? Oh, I'm sick. That's why I'm at the hospital, correct? You know what I mean? So you already going in with a negative mentality, or I feel sick. So then that makes you susceptible to whatever anybody in that hospital tells you. Think about what I'm saying for a minute. Go in the hospital, you say you feel sick. Okay, you're in the ER. Oh, I feel sick. You go to the emergency room, you say, oh, I feel sick. So they put you in this room, and before you know it, the nurse is coming in there and checking your vital signs. And first thing she says, oh, this is a little high, or oh, that's kind of awkward, or you know, and then you really the worry sets in. And then here comes the doctor. Doctor comes in and says, hey, you have a heart problem. And guess what you say before he even says it, you already agree with him. Guess what? I have a heart problem. You see where I'm going with that? So amongst many places where you don't want to get your feel, because in there you begin to believe, you put your faith in whatever they tell you is wrong with you. This is why a lot of folks don't really recover in the hospital. They're just given medication and sent home, and then they still don't recover, and then they develop more symptoms. Do you understand the cycle that's going on? Remember how Cohen talked about cycles? Do you understand this particular cycle that I'm talking about? And this is not only in the hospital, that you see this in the hospital, but you'll see this wherever you go. You may see this in your workplace, in the environment that you're in. This is why it's very important that we guard against, we be very careful, and we guard ourselves against what we fill in ourselves with. Just because these guys are professionals doesn't mean they always get it right. You look at, where is Eddie's in the room? You ask Eddie's or anybody else, yeah, Eddie's, you're here. You look at anybody in the financial sector. Just because they're professionals and got all these titles behind their name, and they tell you to invest, in particular stocks. Now Sean is over here giving a lecture on his chalkboard. But and they give you a particular stock, like what was that one? Lycan Coffee. There was one coffee company, coffee store that kind of stole the Starbucks model. Lucky, I think it was Lycan. It started with an L. But I remember a lot of people were on board, and it was a company out of China. I think it was called Lucky. I want to say Lucky Coffee, Lycan. I can't remember. But anyway, I didn't hop on that one. Because all these professionals, these professionals with all these degrees behind their name and all these titles, PhD and MBA and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you got to buy the stock. This stock is going to skyrocket. It's the next Starbucks. Well, guess what? The stock ended up crashing because they found out underneath the scenes, underneath the sheets over there, that they were, scratching the numbers up. There you go, Uncle. You remember Luckin Coffee. That's it. And a lot of people lost their shirts with that particular stock. If the option stock, whatever you bought in it, they lost their shirts because that stock from one day went from, it dropped tremendously. Let's just say it fell off a cliff. And so, if you continue to listen to the advice of these particular people, these particular people that have all these titles, they're not always right. And that's just one example of them just not always being right in the financial field and even in the medical field, because they're coming at you from a perspective, oh, you have a particular ailment. You won't be cured, but look, this is how we'll treat this particular ailment, and we'll treat it. But they never talk about curing you. So let's just treat it. And the treatments can go on forever until you take your last breath. And they may even cause you to have an early death, because we must guard against what we're being filled with. This is very, very important. Your field. Be very careful what you're filling yourself up with. This is why Cohen has given us all these great things to fill our day with affirmations, with visualizations, with scripting, with speaking, speaking these words and pronunciation of our 22 Hebrew powerful characters, Book of Shem. So these things are very important for us to understand, is that we have to be careful what we fill ourselves with. Hey, honey. We must guard ourselves against that. Right now, Sean, while you exit stage left. So this is very, very important for us to understand. Very, very important for us to understand is that we have to guard against ourselves with. Very, very important for us to understand that. Now, on that note, we're going to move forward, but I want you to examine this as well. You look at America. Like our Cohen was talking about, everybody's waiting on the SSI check, or guess what? They're waiting on another stimulus check. And so, even with the government, watch what you fill yourself with. Ever since this, COVID, so-called COVID mumbo-jumbo kicked off, virus and pandemic and blah, 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 and all this, that, the other, and the third. Do you notice what the speech is now? The majority of people here in North America has not gotten the vaccine. Not even half of Americans have gotten it. But yet now they're saying, especially here in Texas, oh, you don't need to wear a mask anymore. Are you hearing that? They say, oh, you don't need to wear a mask. You can go back to normal. Just try to keep your distance and blah 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 and blah 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 blah. See, the story's gonna always change. But again, it's all about, at the end of the day, they're trying to make money. Do I fault them for trying to make money? No, but they're making money off the fears of these people. And the majority of the money that's made in this world is off the fears or off of the favorites. This is how people make money, off of what people like. Their favorite things, favorite phone, favorite car, or it's made off of fear. These are the way you make money. Off of the favorites, favorite company, favorite house, favorite neighborhood, or off of the fears of individuals. I mean, my goodness, there have been studies on these face masks. These face masks are doing more harm than good. I just took my son to the dentist, and I asked the dentist, as I say, are you finding that with wearing of these, has there been a study on your teeth and always wearing these face masks? And have you seen an uptick in cavities or in any, in the mouth issues because of having to wear this face mask? You know what, sir? This is a novel question that you have, and I don't have an answer for it because I never thought about that. But you see, these are the types of things that you need to think about. And there have been studies on these face masks, and they found that, majority of these face masks don't even work. Virus can still get through them. It's not really a protection. It's just like, it's really nothing. So you've been better off without a face mask to begin with, is what some of these studies are saying. You shouldn't even put one on in the first place because the face mask is actually doing more harm than good. And you got to ask yourself this question. I'm coming to you from a medical standpoint. Now, if the majority of these hospitals have vaccinated their personnel, people in the hospital, then why are the people in the hospital still wearing face masks? The employees and the doctors and blah, blah, blah. They still suited up, booted and suited. Because I'm going to tell you why. Even with the vaccine, you can still get COVID. There's been tested. I've seen it firsthand. People are still getting COVID with having completed the vaccinations for COVID. What does that tell you? Don't put your faith in COVID, in the COVID vaccines. It's all, I'm telling you, it's all a money-making scheme to leave. They're making money on you out of fear. Because they say, well, if I don't have this face mask, then, we went to some stores or some store. A lot of people are not wearing face masks anymore. And boy, people are just looking at them like they're crazy. Like the world's going to come to an end because they're not wearing a face mask. But back to the stimulus side of things. Do you see how Uncle Sam has lured all of these people? Now, let me tell you something firsthand. If you don't like where you're at, come to San Antonio. If you need employment, come to San Antonio. I'm driving around town, and there's people, businesses begging for people, help wanted. How many? That's your case in your particular city, your state. You see help wanted, help needed, need help. Anybody in that city, it's the same way. I'm seeing signs all over the place, and I'm like, why the heck are all these jobs available? Why is jobs availability quite high here in my area? Well, you want to know why? It's because of the stimulus. Everybody has been hoodwinked and bamboozled by the stimulus, and now they're addicted to the stimulus. They're in the stimulus check addiction. They're waiting for the next stimulus. They're waiting for Uncle Sam to bail them out again. Be careful what you fill yourself with. You fill yourself with free things and free. Before you know it, and this is what's happening in San Antonio. People don't want to work anymore. And there's job availability like no man's business. Like, no, I saw a sign. I should have took a picture, but I was driving. I saw a sign at a McDonald's here in San Antonio. You know how they have the signs, you know, the advertisement, the little McDonald's sign. On their little McDonald's sign, they said help wanted. Starting pay is from $13 an hour up to $30 an hour. To work at McDonald's? Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? And then there's this other little chicken joint down the street. Chicken franchise is pretty popular here in Texas. I mean, my goodness, they're starting you out at $15 an hour just to turn over some chicken and some grease. Are you kidding me? But yet, there's no takers. These signs have been up for a very long time. People don't want to go back to work. Why is that? Because they've been filled with free. Oh, you're going to get this free stimulus check. Oh, Uncle Sam is going to always take care of you. No, we need to have the mindset that we're going to take care of ourselves and our families. We're going to do that. We don't have to wait on somebody else to, supply us, supplement us. Rabbi Zachariah saying, I've interviewed 30 people, hired 15, and none showed up to work yet. Are you? I believe you, Rabbi Zachariah. I totally believe you. And that's the facts on the ground. It's because why? People have been filled with a lot of, hot air, basically. They give you a couple of checks and think it's going to do, and think you're going to be okay. And then before you know it, you get addicted. You get hooked. You get hooked on free money. At the end of the day, we all going to have to pay for it. A tax-paying peoples. At the end of the day, we all going to have to pay for it. But meantime, they just see it as free money, free opportunity. To do what? They take this money. Do they go invest it, Eddie's? Yeah, they invested in Walmart and they go to Target and buy up all these things. They invest in these big companies, and just like our Queen said, and this is why these billionaires during the pandemic have made a lot of money, and people with any kind of common sense have made a lot of money during the pandemic. When people weren't working, they were still making money because they knew with the stimulus check that the government wanted to get it, they were going to take this money and invest it in all these companies like Walmart, Target, buying all these big flat screen TVs and all this stuff, that these material things. And food, of course, as well, you see. Shane, y'all saying work from home or work at all. That's so true. Nobody wants to go in and do the 9 to 5 anymore. Nobody wants to go back to the job anymore. Why? Because of fear of COVID? Are they afraid of COVID? Or have they just got comfortable? Adia saying, laugh out loud, they say, make more money, stay at home. Indeed. And that's the mentality down here in San Antonio. But why do I need to go work this 9 to 5 when I'm getting that stimulus check that's more than what I'm making on the job? Or I'm collecting unemployment. My neighbor next door, he loves to work. Ex-military, retired military. And due to COVID, his job let him go because of COVID. He worked at like a Tyson, yeah. He worked at one of their warehouses where they bring in all the chicken, the Tyson chicken, and they let him go. He had been there, loyal employee, 17 plus years, and they let him go. No pension, no nothing. They just let him go cold turkey. So he ended up having to collect unemployment for a while. He had to collect unemployment for a while, and he told me, he said, you know, I'm getting more money on unemployment than I ever got working at Mason. But you know what? He had the mentality of, you know what, I'm not, you know, after about six months, he was tired of being at home. He had to be doing something. He didn't like not working. So, I mean, he went out hunting for jobs. I mean, he's a little up in age, advanced in his years, and nobody wanted to hire him. Because, you know what they would say? Oh, you overqualified. So they wouldn't hire him. They didn't want to pay him the dollars that he was commanding because he was overqualified. Well, now, Baruch Hashem, he has a job working for a tech company, Baruch Hashem, here in San Antonio, doing security for him, Baruch Hashem. He's not full-time yet, but he will be if that's what he desires for himself. But he's one of the ones where, no, I don't want to collect unemployment forever. I need to be working. I have a family. I have twin daughters. I have a family. I have a wife. But there's not many people that have that kind of mindset anymore. Why? It's because what has their field been? Oh, well, I'm going to wait on the free. I'm going to wait on the free from Uncle Sam. Be mindful of what you fill yourself with. This is why it's so important that we ramp up and we amp up our affirmations. We ramp up our scripting for whatever we desire for ourselves, whatever we want for ourselves. That's what's important. So we don't miss our mark. But a lot of people, unfortunately, don't even know what a mark is. They don't even have any desires for themselves because they can't see the road for the trees. Oh, well, I'm going to always be this because they said I'm going to be this. I'm going to always have this disease because a doctor said, all these titles, but he went to school forever, so he's right, and he can't be wrong. No. Be careful what you fill yourself with. Be careful. Be mindful of what you fill yourself with. You don't have to just settle for what they tell you you're going to be. You fill yourself with what you want to be full of. Full of faith, full of hope, full of peace. Not hope, let me take that one out. Full of faith, full of belief, full of feel. What makes you feel good? Having money, having a car, having a house, having refrigerators full of food, serving others. What makes you feel good? What gives you that feel-good feeling? Baruch Hashem. And follow it, and do it, and be it. That's what's important. That's what's important in this time. We must be careful what we fill ourselves with. Many jobs. If you're looking for a job, please come to San Antonio. Many jobs here. But yet, do you know what I hear being echoed down here in Little Mexico? Oh, when is Biden going to release the next stimulus check? And I hear he's got a program coming out the way he's going to be giving money monthly to people. Monthly. They're going to be getting money from Uncle Sam. Monthly. So how do we, and people a lot of people are happy with this kind of situation. And if they're happy with this kind of situation, do you think they're going to be willing to change their situation when they're happy with where they are? So you have to leave these people to it. But you have to be mindful and you have to guard against not falling for that same trap. You can do better than that. You don't need handout. People come for you for a handout. You see? You're the lender. You're the lender, not the borrower. Baruch Hashem. That's promised to us as a people. So we must avoid that mentality. Now I want to talk about the COVID for a minute, because how many of you know what's going on in India? India is having an increase, and my goodness, you put out your positive energy for the peoples in India, because the COVID, they're dealing with it. They're dealing with it. India is a big country, the biggest country in population, Baruch Hashem. I say that to say this, it's not only India that's dealing with the COVID, but it's also China. This news is just hot off the press. I was talking to my brother-in-law last night. This is hot off the press, and I'm going to send pictures to Hardback. He won't believe this. But anyway, there seems to be an increase in numbers of COVID in China, but you won't hear about it. China's closed. China's closed off to the world, and you only hear what they tell you they want to hear. I don't know if you know about this, Shane, y'all, but China now has mandated that all adults, get their vaccine for COVID. Now get this. This is like mind blowing to you. Now, number one, I don't know the name of the vaccine yet. I'm still trying to get that information. But their vaccine is given in 3 doses. So they have to go and take 3 shots. Now get this. They've mandated that all people must get the vaccine. If you don't get the vaccine, you cannot take a taxi. You cannot go to the grocery store. You cannot go to any store and buy anything without the vaccine. And there's this little thing that'll come up on your phone when you have been vaccinated completely. Chalco is saying it's called the Sinopharm vaccine. Is not really really that effective. The China one. So anyway, they could be getting water. Who knows? But anyway, they have to be vaccinated 3 times. Now I know we have a couple of vaccines here where you're vaccinated twice. The J&J is only a one-time deal, but they have to be vaccinated 3 times. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So my brother-in-law, who did not want to get the vaccine, that's where that's his time. He was in line trying to get the vaccine, and lo and behold, they ran out. So he was in line for 4 hours. Well, you know the queues in China, same way probably in India. The queues are going to be long. So he was in line for 4 hours, and he didn't get the vaccine because they ran out. But now the government in China is forcing everybody, the adults, lottie-dottie, you're going to get the vaccine or you won't be able to take a taxi. You won't be able to go to the grocery store and buy anything. So this is almost mandated. So I guarantee you under the scenes they're probably having an uptick in deaths because those numbers are skewed as well. Shane Yap say, no wonder they can't find Western workers for such high-paying jobs at 130K to, my goodness, to, I guess, plus is what you're saying. So be mindful of these things. These are things that are going in the world. Be mindful and put out positive energy towards India, China as well. China is home to me as well, so I'm putting out positive energy for my families over there. But they have to see the situation the way I see it. At the end of the day, me as a traveling man, you're gonna have to get some form of vaccine. But the thing about it is that don't be fearful of the vaccine. Just have your mindset right. The vaccine is not gonna phase you anyway. That's what I was telling my brother-in-law. It's not gonna phase you anyway because you didn't want the vaccine in the first place. You know what I mean? So it's not gonna bother you in no way. And he hadn't had the COVID virus at all. And he didn't get the vaccine. And he didn't want to take it, but now he's forced to take it. So he was pretty upset about that. But I told him, keep your peace. I gave him the, preventive measures to deal with the precautions. And, they Chinese medicine over there. So he'll be able to deal with any kind of side effects or just deal with the, reaction that his body does to whatever their vaccine is over there. That seems to be not that effective, but China has really ramped up their numbers as well. So be mindful of that. So be mindful of what's going on around you and then also what's going on in the bigger picture around the world, because it's not just about what's going on in your neighborhood or your city or your state or even your country, but it's what's going on in the whole of the world, because as the people of the books, of our holy books, we've been given dominion over this whole world, not just where you're located. You look at the bigger picture. It's bigger than you and I. It's bigger. It's bigger than you and I. It's bigger than our neighborhoods. You see, we're here to be a light to wherever the light will shine. And light shines wherever the darkness is. And that's very, very important to understand. Very, very important to understand. So see this as just what it is. Go on with your lives, Mishpachah. Live your lives the way you want to live them and not the way other people are dictating you to live their lives. Don't be afraid of a vaccine. I'm getting the vaccine. I'm getting the J&J. I'm queued up for the J&J, so it's not going to affect me in no way, shape, form, or fashion. I'm just going to carry on. I'm going to carry on. We're the people of the books. They've been trying to outdo us and do us in for many, many years. many, many millennia. And it's not going to happen. We're not going anywhere. Israel is not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere, Mishpachah. We will conquer. We will be successful. we will stand. We will stand now, and we'll be the ones standing in the end. And this is why I don't understand why these, wars with, I don't know, why Israel, who is a superpower, who is a nuclear power, why are they picking on this piddly Palestine? And every time they beat up on Palestine, Palestine don't go anywhere, and they seem to get stronger. They're not going anywhere. This is why I don't understand why Israel, with all that power that they have, are picking on and just blowing up buildings and taking all these lives away. For what? I don't get it. It's like taking a knife to a nuclear fight. It doesn't make any sense. But we see it occurring, and the lives that are being lost, and on both sides, but majority on the Palestinian side. Is just like, why does this need to occur? But again, I think there's some political wranglings going on behind the scenes. But the world is looking at this and they're like, why so much devastation and why so much destruction to such an already weak and poor, nation? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever for her. So this is what we see here, and this is what we're dealing with in real time. This is why it's very important that we be connected to reality, because reality is what it is. And when you see what's going on around the world, that should even make you be even more grateful and gracious to the Most High, to the powers of Israel, with where we are in our locations. I mean, we're free to go about our business. We're free to take the shot here in America. If you want the vaccine, you can get it. If you don't want the vaccine, you don't have to get it. A lot of other countries are not afforded that opportunity. So be grateful, be mindful of where you are. Fill yourself with positivity and positive things. Don't try to run down the nation that you're in. Look at the blessings. Look at the benefits that you have with where you are, instead of running down. Look, you see, a lot of focus is on what you don't have instead of what you have. You know what I mean? A lot of energy is put on what you don't have instead of what you have. See yourself with what you have. Feel yourself with what you have, not what you don't have. Because what you don't have, you can have. But as long as you're saying you don't, or like Akoi says, and then you can't, then guess what? You never will. And this is why most people miss the mark. And they take their last breath, and my goodness, they realize, they missed a great opportunity with the life that was given them, because they never did live a fullness of a life, or even a half full of a life. 50% of that is because they were waiting on some by and by, some pie in the sky that never came. It never came. And they never had dreams. They never had desires. They never had wants, because they were too busy living in fear, or too busy, following whatever, or listening to whoever that just was leading them astray. We're so benefited. We're so benefited. I'm so grateful to be connected to the Kohen and the Gate to give us direction and guidance, proper direction. Perfect guidance is going to assist us in our lives, and has assisted me in my life already, and will continue to assist me in my life to do better and great things. And when those better and great things are complete, to do better and greater things, so that my legacy is left for 100 generations after me. Baruch Hashem. Not just 7 or 8. You know what I mean? And this is important stuff. This is vital stuff as Israel coming out of the slumber. Those of you who are listening via Facebook, or you're listening via YouTube, I mean, this is the generation. You're not listening to this by happenstance. We're the generation that just has awakened. We have woken up. We have woken up. We're that generation. And there's a heavy weight on this particular generation, because it can tilt either one way. It can tilt either one way. Either we can tilt more towards, really going back to the forever ways, or we can tilt back. We can take 2 steps forward and 50 back. So the decision, the choice is up to us to be able to decide for ourselves. We have to decide for ourselves, what we're going to fill our time with. what we're going to fill this period of life that we have with, and what kind of legacy we're going to leave behind. You know, a lot of great people have passed on, and they left a great legacy behind for us to follow, and for us to even do better, and for us to look at and as an example, as a great lesson. Even, you know, we look at our patriarchs and matriarchs, but even more so, a lot of great lessons were learned from our patriarchs and matriarchs, and us as well, in the nations, in these heathen, whatever you want to call them, demonic, whatever name you want to put on it, but we're in these nations to learn great lessons, to help these nations, and to win and to learn, and to win and to learn, and to win and to learn. But a lot of great things, a lot of great experiences have come from what? Not from us being in Israel, but from us being in nations. The nations afford to us a lot of great experience that we can learn from and utilize in our mark making, because we're mark makers. You know, they have market makers, but we're mark makers. We make our marks. And we're market makers as well, if you desire to be a market maker. Or if you desire to be a market participator. If you decide to be a market sideliner. It just all depends on what you desire for yourself. But a lot of folks haven't gotten to that point. As we look at our parsha, I would like to look at, we're talking about your field, but I would like to look at the flip side of what we talk about, or what the Torah talks about and calls the as it said there in let me get there in the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, the Hidden Truly Break Scrolls, as it says there in Numbers chapter 5 verses 20, 29, it calls it the what? This is the Torah of jealousies. Or when, as said there in Numbers chapter 5 verses 30, or when the Ruach, the spirit of jealousies, come upon him meaning is the husband, and he be jealous, and he be jealous over his wife, and shall set the woman before Yahweh, and the Kohen to execute upon her all this Torah. Now, this is the Sota as we know it now. Everybody, lottie-dottie, especially within the family, if you've been in the Hakoi for any minute, you understand that this Sota goes way back to the garden. How many of you understand that, the spirit of jealousy? That this goes all the way back to the garden of, what they call the Garden of Eden. But this goes back to the beginnings. This goes back to the beginnings. Now, I know you all understand that. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip this. Now, let's look at, not the woman wronging the man, but what happens in a situation when the man wrongs the woman? This is not talked about a lot. And if you look at Judaism, it's always the woman that's wrong, seems to be. But what happens when the man wrongs the woman? You women in the room. I know we have any women, put up a W if there's any women in the room. But what happens, you know, they talk about the woman wronging the man, but can a man wrong a woman? That's the question I have for you today. Can a man wrong a woman? To offer your responses, women in the room. Can a man wrong a woman? That's the thing you have to look at. Let's look at that for a minute. Men in the room. Can you wrong a woman? And I would submit to you, hell yes, you can wrong a woman. And I'm seeing it done on many different levels, and yet the blame seems to always fall on the woman, who I consider, no disrespect, but who I consider the weaker vessel. Now, if the woman is considered, in my opinion, the weaker vessel, and the man wrongs the woman, my goodness, what do we have here? This is straight bully pulpit type stuff. This is bullying type stuff. But again, I see this played out time and time again. And when we look at, as students of relationships, we have to look at this. Let's look at it from the man's perspective. Mistreating a woman. let's look at this. Now, you all know, if you have the Abrahamic-Faith Bible, you have the Hidden Truth Brace Scrolls, I mean, come on, it's clear as day, even if you have the King James Version, it's clear as day that, our patriarchs had multiple wives, many wives, and thus begat many, many children. We see that. We get that. We get that. And for this day and time that we're in right now, we see a lot of people use the Torah, men per se, they'll use the Torah as an excuse to take on multiple wives, or to have more than one wife, either, as a concubine or as a wife, however they want to put it, just so they can go out there and do whatever they want to do. Not under the proper, let's just say, procedure, following the precepts that need to be followed, but they utilize the Torah, the laws of Moses, the patriarchs, our patriarchs and matriarchs, and how they lived their life, and they put that in 2021, and they apply it without proper guidance and direction. And thus that puts them in a bad light, in a bad way, because at the end of the day, they end up affecting and having an effect and effect on the woman in a bad way, because the woman ends up mistreated, because the woman ends up with improper justice, no justice, because the application of the patriarchal way of our forefathers is not applied right. Because, again, who they listen to? Majority of the time, they're listening to themselves. But again, let's get back to the point. Let's get back to the point of the mistreatment side of things. The mistreatment side. Because just like you can mistreat, just like a woman can be mistreated, a man can be mistreated as well. And just like a man can be, a woman can be mistreated as well. There's two sides to the stick. But very seldom do you hear, even in Judaism, do you hear of, men being ostracized or punished for mistreating their wives. You don't see that. You don't see that. It's always blamed on the woman. The woman did this, that woman that you gave me, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. My instruction this day for the men in the room is to be on your guard against how we treat our wives, because they can be mistreated. And also to listen to our wives, because they'll come out and tell you in a roundabout way if they're being mistreated. They'll want to communicate this to you. They may not come out and say, hey, honey, you're mistreating me, but be mindful and have an ear. Always give your wife a voice. It's very important. Because what we want to avoid is we want to avoid the spirit of jealousies. We want to avoid that. And the spirit of jealousies goes both ways. There's two sides to it. It can go both ways, Mishpachah. That's what I want us all to understand. The spirit of jealousies is not just a one-sided thing. It's not just, oh, husband is jealous of the wife, so the wife must be cheating. The wife must be cheating on him in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Well, let's question why a wife would be wanting to cheat on you in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Maybe the wife is being mistreated in some way, form, or fashion. So I want to flip the script on this and not just say, oh, the woman is wrong. The woman. Woman came from man. So man must take some responsibility in it. This is how I see it. Woman came from man. So man must take some responsibility in it. What is man not doing? What can man do better? What can hubby do better? Hubby not listening? Hubby didn't get the memo? Hubby not taking time to pay attention to his wife, significant other, concubine, whatever it may be? There needs to be open communication. That's the key to any relation, is open communication. But at the same time, Men, we are superheroes. We must be able to read between the open communication, and sometimes we have to be able to discern. We have to be able to pick up things through nonverbal communication. Oh, man. This is a heavy topic for any married in the room. It's heavy. But it's a topic that must be had. Because in every relation, just like I mentioned, you know, there's going to be issues. You're going to have situations. Some people call them problems. But the bigger thing about it is not the problem, but how you deal with it. Because just like, you know, just like peaches, just like you have peaches, you got to have the cream. You know, there's two sides to it. You know, you're going to have the good with the bad. But the more important question, the more important action that needs to be taken is, oh, what kind of action do you take and how do you deal with it? That's what's important, is how we deal with it. We have to be bigger men to be able to listen to our wives, to be able to take and listen to what they're voicing to us and actually give them a voice to whether they can communicate, to whether they can open up to you. Listen, if they can't open up to you, then, I mean, who else are they going to open up to? Remember, the woman is the weaker vessel, so they're going to be quick to go to talk to somebody, man, woman, anybody that's willing to listen. And the majority of the time, for what I see, I work around a lot of females, and they want to talk to another male. If they ain't going to talk to their husband, they'll talk to another male, as much as they like to cackle like chickens amongst themselves. But they'll want to go talk to another male. Because, believe it or not, women look up to men. They do. They may not come out and tell you, but they look up to men because they, you know, deep down inside of them, they understand that, you know what, this is bigger than me. I need to go to a source that's bigger than me. I understand that I'm a rib and I come from the side bones, Baruch Hashem. They won't come out and say it like that. But they come to me. They confide in me. And I'm like, listen, I'm not your husband, but I listen to you. And most of the time they just want somebody that's going to listen to them. And I begin to think, well, maybe they can't talk to their husband. Maybe their husband won't talk to them. And this is just a basic humanity type situation. Yeah, we in the Torah, and that's a benefit. But a lot of people are not. And they need guidance as well. They need direction. And so if you just take the time to listen. Judaism will tell you that a woman don't have a voice. The majority of these religions of Judaism, they'll say, oh no, the man that has the say and blah, blah, blah. Woman, you have your voice. You have not a piece of meat. The woman is the woman that came from the man, Baruch Hashem. Let's redirect. Let's refocus. When we look at the Sota, that's what I look at. I look at, okay, yeah. And sometimes you just get a woman that just ain't happy with the situation. And then you just have to release her. That's guarding. You just have to let her go. Not that you didn't try. But sometimes you just have to let them go. Because they're not happy with you. They're happy with other things. You don't give them peace. They find peace with other things. You don't give them joy. They find joy in other things. Okay, so I get that. As being a divorcee myself, I get that. I totally get that. Don't mean we have to be enemies, but yeah, I get it. You find your happiness somewhere else. I get it. I'm totally happy for you. If you found your happiness, you found your peace, and hey, I'm totally happy for you. Doesn't mean you have to hate the world. You have to hate that person. No, you just they couldn't find happiness with you, and be happy for them that they found happiness elsewhere. But in the meantime, as students of relationships, we all need them. Women in the room, to Rabbi for acknowledging that there are women in the room. With the women that are in the room, they need to be respected. They need to be honored. They don't need to be disrespected. They need to be heard. You need to give them a voice, and you need to treat them right. Well, what's treating them right, Rabbi? At the basic minimum for us is providing for them. Food, clothing, and shelter, providing an ear for them to hear, providing them a shoulder that they can lean on. Provide, to be that provider for them. Provide, to go out and actually work a job, a 9 to 5 for them. Put food on the table. If you can work from home and do that, Baruch Hashem. But that's what's required. The requirement for us as men is to be there for our wives. Physically, emotionally. That's the requirement. A lot of times, the focus is put on the weaker vessel. Oh, the woman did this, the woman. No. Let's stop and pump the brakes for a minute. When you sit here and you look at it from the judgment seat, you say, look, if you can't blame it all on the woman's the weaker vessel. Let's look at the other side of it. What's going on over there as well? Yah forbid, we don't want no more sota going on where we even have to perform. Well, I don't, but the Kohen, he doesn't even have to deal with sota. Why? Is because the husband is listening. The husband is keen and clued up with what's going on in his house. And he's paying attention. As he's paying the bills, and as he's bringing in the money and circulating the monies for the house, he's also listening and mindful. His wife is not a robot. She's a creature created by the, Creator, Baruch Hashem. That has desires, that has wants, that has needs, that needs to be tended to. And it's important for the husband to look up and assume his role, and to be looked up upon as the person that can do that. Because when that's not there, Mishpachah, let me tell you, the woman is going to go out and find all of that fulfillment that she needs in other things. It may be in another man. It may be in another woman. I don't know. But she will go out and find that. Because at the end of the day, she wants to be full. And if she's empty in some kind of way, shape, form, or fashion, she's going to go find a place to fill that emptiness. And it may be so subtle as she coming up to you and says, oh, honey, I'm just a little lonely. I'm just little hints. Maybe she won't come out and tell you. Maybe she's shy. But she'll be throwing you some telltale signs. Oh, honey, I've just been tired lately. Oh, you better put up them antennas. What you need, honey? We need to take a vacation. We need a staycation. We need to get away for a minute. What do we need to do? What do you want to do? Don't ignore it. Don't just explain it away. Oh, honey, you all right. Take these 2 pills and talk to me in the morning. No. Life is so beautiful, Mishpachah. It's wonderful. Life is indeed wonderful. And this life, it wasn't intended for us to go through this life alone. Truly not. Not by ourselves. But with a mate, with a helpmeet, a helper. It's going to assist and help you men in the room. Not become a problem, but to assist. And I tell you, I've got more instruction and guidance from my wife just by what she tells me. I listen to it. I take it to the head and I take it to the heart. And I listen to it. And she's been a tremendous help to me. Tremendous. My wife is like 10 wives, Mishpachah. 10 wives rolled up in one. 10 wives. I tell her all the time. She gets so happy. I tell her all the time. Because it's true. She is. She is. And women, y'all, I truly respect you all because you guys were built in a different way than we're built. And you guys are able to keep it together. But you can't do it by yourself. And this is why, for those of you who aren't married, you need a strong man. Those of you who are not in a relation, you need something to lean on to as well. Men definitely can't do it by themselves. You'll see many shows about these sitcoms and these shows about men trying to do it by themselves, and doesn't work out too well. They end up having a lot of problems, and vice versa. Women trying to do it all by themselves, it just doesn't work. And you get these successful women, these CEOs, these corporate executives, these women, they're making all this money. But then you do a survey and they say they'd rather be at home. The majority of them would rather be at home with their children and their family. Making meatloaf. I haven't had that in a while. Making some meatloaf. Just being home with their families. And as all of you know, that's one of the greatest blessings of the COVID. It has really shone a light on families. And families have either come together or families have not come together and they're actually apart and they actually moved on. Because the COVID made you realize what you really want at the end of the day and what really is important. It really has. This COVID, it has really tested humanity in such a way to where it made you have to deal with yourself. More importantly, your family. But yeah, you had to deal with yourself in such a way where, my goodness, that's beautiful. This isolation, so-called isolation, if you want to call it, has made folks have to deal with themselves, and that's beautiful. The question is, have you dealt with yourself in the proper way? Are you better? Or are things just worse? Why? It's because, who you listen to. Who are you listening to? When we look at the Sota, my goodness, what does the Torah tell us about that? Torah calls it this is the Torah of jealousies. When a wife goes aside to another instead of her husband. What happens when the husband goes aside? Not to another woman because he can do that. But when the husband goes aside to not honoring the vows that he made for that particular woman. What happens when the husband goes aside? What are the repercussions? Y'all forbid any of the husbands go aside. Y'all forbid. But what happens? What causes that? What's the root cause? What's the root cause of that, Mishpah? We have to look at this. We have to look at this like this, Mishpah. I say it this way. You see, we have to continue to understand our women. For that matter, we have to continue to understand them and understand that, yeah, they are the weaker vessel. And I say that with no disrespect. I say that more so that we need to be, as men, even more praying for them. They're fragile. And so we need to handle them as they are fragile. You wrap them up in a nice box. When you send something UPS and it's fragile, I mean, you put so much padding in there, and you're taping it up well, and you've got extra padding on top of extra padding, so it can make the journey and destination without breaking. And this is what we must consider going forward. Now, I say this in all respect. For the single women in the room, I guess you may be wondering, well, who do I lean on? You lean on your Kohen. Your Kohen in the gate is your form of a husband in a way. You know what I mean? For you single women that haven't, hitched up yet. And for you married women, it's your husband. And if things can't go right there, then you can come to us for assistance and guidance, and maybe there needs to be some counseling that take place. But these things are important. Because as all of you know, in this COVID environment, a lot of homes have been destroyed through divorce at this time. I don't know if any of you follow what's going on with the lawyers, but the lawyers have been busy during the time of the COVID. A lot of divorces have taken place. during this time, because people realize that they can't live with one another. And it took isolation, it took being away from the job and just at home for people to begin to see that. I can't live with you. You're not what I wanted. I didn't desire you. You know, people begin now to realize with this isolation what they really desire. Most folks desire in a new home. My goodness, the home front is crazy. You know, the inventory of homes is slim. So it's a bidder's war now for homes. Because people realize, oh, I want a new home. Oh, I desire a new home. Some folks realize I desire a new husband. Some folks realize I desire a new wife. Some folks realize, we desire children. And they beget children during this time, Baruch Hashem. People begin to realize this isolation has really helped people realize what they desire. Baruch Hashem. So in everything, Mishpachah, I encourage you, don't look at the negativity. Don't look at what's on face surface and say, oh, well, Rabbi Kefa, the doctor said I have this heart problem. I don't want to hear that. Your feel is this: I don't have a heart problem. My heart is great. You know, I'm in perfect health. I'm in mind and body. I'm healthy, mind and in body, Baruch Hashem. It is definitely true. Remember those 3 affirmations I told you to give us a while back? I'm putting those to the test for sure. But that's very, very important for us to understand. Is you don't have to go with what they're trying to fill you with. What is your feel? I don't have any of these ailments. I'm not going to claim them. I'm not going to name them. Claiming ailments, the biggest place you're going to go to do that is in a hospital. Oh, I got this disease, I got this disease and that. I mean, it's almost like a rite of passage or a rite of honor. Yeah, I got COPD. Yeah, I have a high blood pressure. Yeah, I have diabetes. You see how they say it so nonchalant. But do you see how they're affecting themselves and having an effect on their life? You have it because you say you have it. You have it because that's what you want to be. You said it. Yeah, you know, I done had 5 heart attacks now. Well, guess what you're going to have? Heart attack number 6. It's because that is exactly what you're scripting. The verbal scripting. And it comes out, manifested exactly how you served it up on that platter. Heart attack. 7-course meal heart attack coming your way. We have to be on guard and mindful of these things. See, it's these particular environments that we put ourselves in. This is why we must be careful. You say, well, don't go to the hospital. Hey, if you need to go to the hospital, go to the hospital. But go to the hospital with the right mindset. You know what I mean? Don't go in there. Don't go in there getting filled with all that mumbo jumbo. Then you're gonna come out with all kind of ailments and on all kind of prescription medication. You don't need it. Don't need that stuff. You don't need that stuff. Same way in relations. You need to change your environment up. Change the environment up. Maybe, who do you listen to? What environment are you putting yourself in? You see, some folks can't handle being in a hospital. They're not ready. They're not strong enough yet. Their inner man, their subconscious is not ready for that. The inner woman is not ready for that yet. Can't handle it. Then don't go around there. Don't be around that environment. It's all about your environment. You make your environment. Don't let the environment make you. Because that's what'll happen. Either you're going to create your reality, or reality is going to create one for you. You make your reality. Make it. Make your reality what you want to make it. Or believe me, your reality is going to make you. It's going to make you, but believe me, reality is going to look at you and give you a script that you never desired. And for the most part, Mishpachah, this is where majority of the people are. When you look at human nature, they're being played by somebody else's script. Correct me if I'm wrong. students of human nature. They being played by somebody. Society today, their script is being run by somebody else. It's being written by somebody else. It's being verbally scripted by somebody else. The television, the news media, the gossipers that are around them. You see what I'm talking about? I mean, I'm telling you, that's just what's going on. At the end of the day, when you can sit down and see this mishpachah, this will be a revelation to you and a half. Because you realize, man, I've just been a robot for all these years. And just being told what to do and I did it. Just being told what to eat and I ate it. Being told what to wear and I wore it. You know what I mean? But when you realize, no, I desire to wear this. Oh, I desire to eat this. Oh, my desire is to have this. Baruch Hashem. It's a whole new world. Your world becomes the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. Baruch Hashem. And it can be that, but you see, a majority of people don't see that. And they're just like the blind leading the blind. And like our Korean's friend, they both end up in the ditch somewhere. Relative, whoever that was, they end up in the ditch. And yeah, majority of folks, they laughing about it too. They laughing about being in the ditch. Oh yeah, this is great. When they could be living an abundance, a life, they could be living a life that they imagine. But they can't imagine it. Think about that. They can be living a life that they imagine. The life that they imagine, they can be living it. But they cannot imagine. Why? It's because everything's already scripted out for them. From the day that they're born, everything's already scripted out for them. No, that's not the case. And my son Nakshan, who will be 2 and 4 months, he'll realize in September, that's not the case. I can have what I want, I can be what I want, I can do what I want, I am doing what I want, I am being what I want to be. Man, if my father would have told me these things, Hakoim, my goodness. But again, it is what it is. We are where we are in this period in our lives right now so that we can do great and marvelous things. But what's your field? You see? What do you fill your wife up, your significant other? What do you fill her up with majority of the time? Praise and honor and respect? Do you call your wife a queen? Hey, Charlotte, come bring this to me. Or you treat her like a freaking servant. What are you feeling? What's your feel? Well, I don't, Rabbi, right now I don't have anybody. I don't. Well, again, go get somebody. Go get what you want. And don't tell me you don't want somebody, because everybody needs somebody. I think that was the song. But everybody needs somebody. That's a basic necessity. A basic want. Man, I tell you. And it's an experience that everyone should have. Don't go through this life single and mingling. That's living a shell of life. Have the courage to go out. Even if you fell on your face 10 times before, guess what? That was in the past. You don't fall on your face no more. You win and you learn. You win and you learn. You win and you learn. That's just what it is. And it's all about changing up our whole mindset, our whole way of thinking, our whole thought process. And it can be done. It may take a little time, but that's no problem. It can be done. It can be done if you desire it to be done. I can sit here and talk to you all day about it, but what good is that going to do? It can be done if you desire it to be done. I can cheer you on. I can give you all the encouragement in the world. But you got to believe it for yourself. You got to see it and believe it and truly feel it. People in the black community like, you feel me? Yeah. You got to feel it. Just like the people in the back, like I said, you feel me? You feel me, dog? I said, I'm not your dog. You feel? He comes to me and say, hey, you feel me, dog? I was like, I have a dog at home and his name is Pharaoh. I'm not your dog. Like, it was like, do you feel me, dog? I'm like, okay, whatever. I say, I'm a lion. I'm not a dog, sir. You can say you feel me lying. They say, do you feel me, dog? I'm like, wait a minute. I don't. No. I don't feel you. But you gotta feel it. You gotta feel it, Mishpah. You gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. Oliver said, I have a friend in the U.S. who says that every 10 seconds. Well, he is a true believer, Oliver, because he feels a lot. He is a true believer, Oliver. People are false. He is a true believer because he has a lot of feelings. Do I have to feel you? No, you have to feel yourself. You have to feel it. Come up to me. Do you feel me, dog? I'm like, I'm not your dog, man. I'm not a dog. I'm a lion. Anyway, yeah, I get a good laugh off that. Yeah, I hear that a lot too. But you got to feel it, Miss Fahad. You truly got to feel it. And you got to go through life totally happy. But if you're happy and your wife is not happy, what's wrong? There's the issue. You put on a facade. I see that all the time. I saw a lot of Christianity. You know, they sit there in church and sing the hymns and do the little dance like David. And then the man goes home and beats on his wife, man. And I see that. But she comes on and puts on his face in church. Then her son tells me, man, my dad goes home and beats my wife. And he sit there and tells me, we sit there in church. He said, man, I don't even know why they're jumping up and down and praising the Lord like this. And my father goes home and beats on my mother. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, man, they put on a good show. They put on a good facade, but they do that. You can take that story and multiply it times probably 1 million. Sad to say, but it's true. And it's not only in Christianity, by the way. Judaism is up in the mix too, as well. Oh, we love Hashem. When you're giving your wife a right hook, but you love Hashem? No. I don't even want to hear that. That's a cop-out. See, these are people who lack guidance, lack instruction. No, don't tell me about some Hashem. You done gave your wife an uppercut, and now she got a black eye, and you want to talk about Hashem? No. There's no Hashem for you. You got your wife living in hell. And my desire is that she don't live in hell. If it means that she got to leave you, then so be it. Yet there's a lot of wives right now that are living in hell, Mishpah. How many of you know some wives right now living in hell? There's a lot of wives right now living in hell, and yet they put up with it. And I'm like, you ain't got to live in hell. Go find your heaven. Get out of this place and go be happy somewhere else. I guess because they like to come up and talk to me. I'm approachable. And so folks like to come up to me and just talk. I don't know you from Adam, but you want to come up to me and talk about your personal matters? Okay. Do you want to be happy at the end of the day? Where do you find your peace and love and joy? What do you want out of life? I tell you, just like the Master Yeshua said, what do you want? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What do you want out of it? Do you love yourself, by the way? So you say you love Jesus, do you love yourself? What do you want out of this life? What do you want? And a lot of folks, you ask them that, and it takes them a while. They got to think. And they got to ponder on it. I'm like, wow, the conditioning is heavy. It's real. Why? It's because somebody else has been writing their script. Society has written their script for them. It's already written, and it's already, you already got the cliff notes on your whole life. This is what's going to go down. At this time, this is going to happen. This is going to happen at this time. And this is going to happen at this time. And you're going to die unhappy, blah, blah, blah. No. You're not writing my script. I'm going to flip your script. I'm writing my own script. A script of happiness and of peace and of joy and of longevity and of legacy and of riches and of infinite abundance. Baruch Hashem. And it's more than just words, Mishpah. You could be living that, right? I tell you. I see what Akoy means. Our cousins over there, they live in large and in charge over there. And you're right, Akoy. Their money's on a total different level. I was watching the other day camel races in Saudi Arabia. Oh my goodness. I'm going to a camel race in Saudi Arabia. That's the most beautiful spectacle you ever want to see. Camel races, Mishpah? I'm down. Forget about these thoroughbreds over here in North America. Man, I'm going to a camel race in Saudi Arabia, man. Wow. That's beautiful, man. Beautiful stuff, man. Man, they living like on a whole, intense, a whole different level. They need they need to make their own little billionaire, gazillionaire list, because they're on a whole different, they're our cousins, man. Our cousins. Come on, man. You think they're worried about, we got to kill off this number of people because there's not enough food in the world? Come on, man. Believe me, I didn't hear that out of none of these sheiks over there. They was not saying any of that. Believe me. Believe you me. Believe you me. They weren't saying any of that. They weren't saying any of that, Mishpah. So it's about what your feel is. See, now I feel like a sheik. I am a sheik. You know, because I feel their lifestyle. You see, you gotta feel it. Whatever you want to be, you gotta feel it. You gotta see it. And then your belief system will grow tremendously in it. Because guess what? If they can have it, so can I. If they can go to a camel race, so can I. Sit up in my tent, eating some lamb. I tell you, I was like, wow, man, this is amazing. Baruch Hashem. They're living their lives. They're happy, living their lives. Full of abundance. There are no worries, only wonders. You're not worried about anything. That's what we should be. Same way, if that's what you desire. I'm not telling you should be if you don't want to be there. See, just a lot of folks, they just don't know what they want to be. They just don't know it, Mishpah. They don't know what they want to be. Nobody ever asks them that question. You know, what do you desire for yourself in this life? This beautiful gift that you've been given. What present do you want to give yourself? They're like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm just trying to meet this bill. I'm just trying to save my mortgage. I'm like, come on, man, it's bigger than that. But see, they don't think that way. So in that aspect, we can help them, we can assist them in expanding their horizons and busting that bubble so they can come out and see the world for what it really is. We're here to help. I'm not here to condemn you. I'm definitely not here to judge you. I'm here to help you. Rescue brings help. I can assist you. But you got to want to be helped. You got to know what you want to be helped. Right? But you got to want to be helped. That's my feel. But I can't help anybody if I'm in the soup line. How am I going to help somebody being in the soup line? That's not going to be of great help. There's just so much currency circulating this earth. If you all understood how much currency is circulating this earth, how much currency is exchanging hands on a daily basis between countries, between cities, between states, between governments, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. And you know, this bullying of the Palestinians, to me, that's all that it is, man. This is not even, this is an unjust fight. This is not even fair. I mean, you know, you got people throwing rocks while the other people are shooting bullets. How is that fair? When somebody throwing bricks and the other person is hitting you with a bomb, that's just that's not a fair fight. So you know, currency can stop that fight just like this. All President Biden got to do is cut off the aid that he gives Israel, and I guarantee you, the bombs will stop just like that. They talk about peace. Well, let's get to the root of it. Stop the currency from flowing into Israel, and see what happens to Israel. You see what I'm saying? But again, you know, then we can talk about some peace. You know, let's make it a level playing field here. But again, that's not what we see in reality, right? But again, that's just how I see it. So, Shane Ya, pay close attention to what's going on over there in China. That's just the news that I got out today, actually last night, from the brother-in-law, who's very disgruntled about going to get his vaccination. Actually, he was totally happy because they had ran out. But again, the queues were heavy. The queues were seriously heavy. And let's just lift up the world, because that's what we're here for. Don't be so caught up on yourselves. Lift up the whole world. There's a bigger picture out there, and we have bigger things to do as Israel. We're a small, what they consider a small nation, but we're so powerful. We're a superpower, just amongst the family of Israel. These numbers that were were counted in the census, numbers mean nothing. We're super powerful. Don't get caught up with the consensus, because the consensus doesn't rule. The powers of the Most High, the Most Highest, that's what rules. And the people that He chose for Himself, we set the standard. And our standard is above the gold standard, Baruch Hashem. It's above the gold standard. It's above the Bitcoin standard, Baruch Hashem. So we'll just keep it moving, Mishpah. That's what we're going to do. We're going to keep it moving. Understanding, with the understanding of, and being mindful of what we fill ourselves with. Our feel. What's your feel? What's your feel? Oliver, do you feel me? What's your feel? Do you feel me, Oliver? Do you feel me? What's your feel, Oliver? What do you feel? What are you filling yourself with? We must consider that going forward. Very important to consider that. Fill yourself with your affirmations. Fill yourself with your scripting, with your verbal scripting, with your chanting, with your meditation. My goodness, you're doing all this. You have no time to be worried about Illuminati and world destruction and nuclear blah, 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 which is never going to happen, man. Don't believe all the hype. You know what I mean? But again, it's what we filling ourselves with. And a great barometer for you to test yourself is, during these 6 days of labor, be mindful of what you're thinking about. And you'll be like, man, I'm filling myself with this. I'm filling myself with that. I'm filling myself with that. No, you could be filling yourself with this. And then begin to change it. Well, we must be cognitive, and we must be conscious of what we're filling ourselves with, and what we're allowing ourselves to be filled with. It's very important. This VIP stuff, very important information. It's VIP type stuff. I ain't told you. These sick with billionaires, and what are they filling themselves with? Okay, what business are we going to buy? We're going to buy this airline? Do we want this airline? What are the numbers? What do you think? What is the airline? Yeah, I mean, come on. They talk about, yeah, man, I just don't know. I've been depressed lately and blah, blah, blah. I ain't got time for all that. Their focus is on growing and becoming even more prosperous and to be successful. What's your focus? What's your feel? Consider that going forward. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for the Shabbat. I would say Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Shalom to all of you, Mishpah. Have a great 6 days labor ahead. And control your environment. Take control. Be in command of your desire, of your world. You command it. So command it, commander. Now go ahead and sit with commanders. You too are a commander. Command it. Command it. Baruch Hashem. On that note, we'll wrap it up for this Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Shalom. Hey, Shane, y'all, I'll send you those pictures too of my brother-in-law, McHugh. He was so mad. He was so mad. I had to calm him down. Like, hey, calm down. It's okay. He's like, what about this vaccine? He said, I don't know what it is. I said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you don't worry about it, it won't bother you. When you worry about it, it will bother you and affect you. It's all about our thought process. And this is a man in a total different language. He's in a total different culture, a total different country. But again, I see that. You probably multiply that by a billion. There's a lot of people worried about all this stuff. But they shouldn't be. Baruch Hashem. Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Shalom, Mishpah. Over to you, Akoin.
Today for that, Rabbi Kefa. Yes, and we will close. And I don't think I have anything further to say today, other than the fact that what I've taught you today, put it to practice. That's all I can tell you. Put it to practice. You decide for yourself today what you want to be. And I've just given you a brief glimpse. I've just given you a glimpse of some of my meetings with so-called rich people. And, that's what they talk about. They talk about the next business, the next property deal, the next airline deal. These are the kind of people where I've actually, where I lived in, where I've been to. And when I go on my travels, that's the kind of people I sit with. I don't sit over there talking about Illuminati and what's happening here and who's going to take over the world. We don't waste time like that. We spend our time on talking about what's happening in the business world. What's happening to shipping containers. How many ships are coming in the country, how many are going out. Is business good? That's what people talk about. People on that level talk about that. So I highly encourage you to think about your world and think about yourselves. India, as you know, has been dealing with this pandemic issues, and they're also dealing with another disease called black fungus disease, which is a disease that affects people who live in, I guess, I'd probably say poor environments, with damp, and the damp can get into your body and can cause problems and can cause illnesses. And I believe that people in England, they also experience similar issues in their homes with mold. You get mold when you don't open your windows in England. You don't open those double glazed windows, you start getting mold coming in, and you then have to open them and repaint and do this and do that. All of that happens in England because England's a damp country, and a lot of rain can cause dampness, and British people have to deal with that. They have to get dehumidifiers, they have to do other things to mitigate the damp effects. And apparently in India, they're having this problem with some people where they're getting this illness going into their bodies, and it can be fatal if not treated, and they're short supply on drugs on that front as well. They don't have enough medicines for it. So, and then they're dealing with the virus, and things are just rolling on, and a lot of people having oxygen issues. But I found something of interest in India. There was this Sikh temple, and I thought they were commendable. They did a great job. They set up additional to their temple. They set up an area in their temple area, or their worship place, as part of I think it was 100, maybe greater than 100 beds for oxygen supplies. So they were getting in oxygen, from donations given to them, money donations. They were buying oxygen cylinders, and they were giving it to people who were ill. These virus patients were taking oxygen from them for free, and I thought that was a great service. It's absolutely, hands off to them for doing that. Absolutely wonderful. That's great how they can help humanity. So it's great, to see humanity come together in different parts of the world to help each other, and it's great. And as you know, that the children of Israel were initially given this, this is what they were told, to be a light unto the world, light unto the nations. And it's up to us. What do we want to be? Do you want to be whiners, or do you want to be light unto the world? So take your pick. Have a great Shabbat, have a great festival ahead, and remember, never come empty-handed with festivals before Yahweh. Always come with offerings before Yahweh. Renew your covenant of marriage, renew your covenant of Torah with Yahweh. Now's the time to do that. Okay? Make sure that you as a family do that, and you will do great works ahead. Great works. Chadasha, Shabbat Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. If you wish to support our work, you can go to www.forever-israel.com or www.Abrahamic-Faith.info, and there is a donate now icon for PayPal, and you can send in a donation of your choice from that particular address. You can also use Cash App, and you can use PayPal directly, and you can send a donation to Shimon63, SHIMOUN63 at yahoo.com, or you can send a donation to $SIMALT with the Cash App. We greatly appreciate your support in this endeavor for us to spread the truth and the correct way for people to better their lives and to serve the God of Israel in their lives. Thank you, and may you be blessed forever. Amen. Amen.